Excellent. Looks like we're getting there. So we've had some technical difficulties connecting Hastings Health Centre, but it looks like we're off and away. So that's fantastic. So believe now we can kick off, and we've given it a good few minutes to allow people to filter in, which is actually always useful about this time of day. So kia ora, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Fully appreciate the great turnout and in and amongst all of your busy schedules. I'm Alex Koppel-Chantren. I'm Medtech's Integrations Program Manager. And with us today, we have Jordan Stevens from AskYourTeam and Karina Lack and Michelle McCarthy from Hastings Health Centre here to discuss AskYourTeam's patient voice product, which integrates with Medtech via our interoperability platform, Alex, which is not named after me. As you come across questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to pop those into the Q&A box down the bottom of your screen. And the team will get through as many of those as possible during the session. Please note that if your question doesn't get answered during the webinar, we will ensure that we get contact and question details sent through to the team following the webinar in order to make sure that those get followed up. For any who have any colleagues or associates who were really interested in attending today, but for any reason couldn't fit it into their schedules, totally appreciate. Time is a very precious resource right now. We are recording this session, so we are, of course, happy to pass that along to anybody who's interested in seeing this. So I know you're not here to listen to me talk, so I'll hand over to the folks who were actually here to see. So take it away, Jordan.
Thank you, Alex. Kia ora tātou. What I'll do is open with a quick karakia before jumping in. Tū taua mai I runga, tū taua mai I raro, tū taua mai I roto, tū taua mai I waho, kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, tā ki e. Welcome everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar. My name is Jordan Stevens. My background is as a physiotherapist for the last 12 years prior to joining AskYourTeam in 2019. My role at AskYourTeam is in helping develop our health sector offering and development of patient voice. So I've worked closely with Alex and the team at Medtech and Hastings Health Centre for the last couple of years and during this project, and I'm very pleased to be joined today by Karina and Michelle from Hastings Health Centre. Thank you very much, team, for joining us today. Bit of housekeeping, as Alex mentioned, if you have any questions, please ask them in the Q&A box down the bottom, and we will get to as many as we possibly can. And those who don't get to, we will answer them in the follow-up session, follow-up email post this webinar. After this session, I will email all attendees summarising the webinar, all of the questions and links to the AYT webpage or AskYourTeam webpage, where you can find further information like FAQs and further information on patient voice and our product. I will be running a one-off webinar in 2 weeks' time, and that will be for all attendees, and that will be a system demonstration, so you can see the patient voice product from end to end, onboarding to the reports, etc. And we can answer any further questions you may have around product and security or anything that delves deeper into the AskYourTeam patient voice product. So who are AskYourTeam? AskYourTeam is a New Zealand organisation. We've been operating in New Zealand since 2014. And up until 2 years ago, our core focus was employee feedback and insights using globally researched and validated question sets. Then 2 years ago, we were approached by a client, a health sector client, to help them creating a tool that would survey patients and gather insights, feedback from patients. And since then, we have been working with Medtech and Hastings Health Centre to develop up the patient voice offering. It does integrate with Alex, as Alex has mentioned, and it works to automate and simplify gathering insights from patients and consumers, and you'll hear more about that today from Karina and Michelle. It's allowed us to provide an amazing opportunity to gather these insights to make a real difference in primary care, which we're very, very proud of. I'll provide further information on all those details post this webinar, as I've mentioned, but the reason you're here today is to hear from Hastings Health Centre and their experience with the AskYourTeam patient voice product. Michelle and Karina, thank you so much. You've got here in the end with the technical difficulties, so thank you so much for coming along today. I'm sure everyone is eager to hear from you both. Look, but before we can get into that, can you please introduce yourselves, starting with you, Karina? Can you tell us a little bit about your background, Hastings Health Centre, and your overview of your role?
Thanks, Jordan. Yeah, it appears that our system is so secure that it won't let us be panelists in a webinar. But here we are on a phone as a backup. So yeah, I'm Karina Lack, and I've been the CEO of Hastings Health Centre for 2 years now. And prior to that was at the PHO and DHB here in Hawke's Bay. So we are potentially the largest general practice in New Zealand. Someone may correct me if I'm wrong, and it's unofficial, self-proclaimed. We have about 33,000 enrolled patients. 30,000 of those are at our main site here in Hastings, and 3,000 at a smaller site in Havelock North. Downstairs we've got a urgent care as well. We see about 115 patients a day through there, and a small radiology department. And so amongst all of that and running it all is we've got a team of about 170 staff. So yeah, it's a pretty decent size operation.
Kia ora, everybody. I'm Michelle McCarthy. I am the People, Quality and Health and Safety Manager. I'm a registered nurse by profession, about 20 odd years in practice nursing. I came to Hastings Health Centre 4 years ago. Previously, before that, I worked at the PHO, and I've done a sort of a series of jobs in support, advisory, quality, that sort of thing. I'm a trained auditor. My biggest interests are in quality, and that's improvement, assurance, measuring and delivering quality care, and then supporting our people, which is our staff, with the best info, data and processes, etc., to be able to deliver that excellent quality care, and then checking back in to make sure we're getting it right. So that is me.
Thank you so much, Michelle and Karina. Thank you for that. Well, let's get into it. I guess the way this is going to work, team, is I'm going to pose a few questions to Michelle and Karina, and we'll get their responses, and we'll go back and forth like that until we get to the Q&A session at the end. So first of all, Karina, Michelle, can you please provide an overview of what survey tool or process Hastings Health Centre was using before AskYourTeam, and what problems you were looking to solve when you considered the AskYourTeam patient voice product?
I think that's me answering that. Well, to be honest, we probably did, well, I know we did the bare minimum we needed to do to get us by with our accreditations, to fulfill our obligations under the PHO Services Agreement, and by that I mean undertaking the National Patient Experience Survey. We did paper audits in urgent care. Yeah, we did them because we had to, and because everything we had was so clunky. We probably spent more time trying to work out how we were going to do a survey, collect the information we wanted, rather than spending the time being able to actually analyse our results and see where we were up to. So everything we did was paper-based, or if it was IT-based, it was difficult. Yeah, clunky, I think, would be the word that I'd use.
Yeah, and I think for me, kind of what I wanted was to really move away from it being an obligation and more about actually gathering patient experience information that we could do something with. And from a bare minimum, we still wanted to be able to cover off our audit requirements, so that was really important for us. But it was really keen to start getting some real-time information. Wanted to use the information to help with improvements. Wanted to hear from more people. Wanted to be able to analyze the data, and we wanted to give the opportunity to everyone to provide information. And so for us, that's about 500 people a day using our service. So had to be able to we wanted to be able to deal with that number of people.
Yeah.
Perfect. Look, and I think, that you've gone from a sort of paper-based, really clunky type of situation, to something that is more sort of real time in what we're offering. So, why did you feel Ask Your Team could solve the problems that you had previously with what you had and what you were using? What sort of made you sort of make that decision of, and how did you think would help you in that space?
Well, I could say that one of the issues, if I think back to, of course, we still do the National Patient Experience Survey because we have to, but actually sometimes, because it's only run every 3 months and they send out a certain amount of text or, emails or text to a particular group of people, we were getting really, really low numbers considering the size of the organisation, and they, in particularly for Māori and Pacific Island patients, in some stages for Pacific Island patients, we might get 3 people undertaking the survey, and maybe one would finish it and then not answer all the questions. So we just weren't getting enough data. And then we looked at Ask Your Team, which runs constantly. It's just whirring away in the background. And so even though we haven't increased our percentage of Māori and Pacific Island people answering the survey, if we look at it in comparison to non-Māori or Pacific, however, the amount of data we're getting is just so much bigger. So we don't sort of have to worry about that so much now. So we knew that if we went to a huge number of requests going out each day, that it would support us getting a lot more data and information in. Plus, the patient experience survey just asks a whole lot of questions that just don't interest us. We're not interested in what their experience was when they went to the local DHB or whatever. So we wanted to make sure that we were able to get questions that we wanted to ask, and Ask Your Team was able to do that for us.
And I think, Michelle and I both used Ask Your Team internal surveys in a previous role and in our current role at Hastings Health Centre. So we were familiar with the tool and how it worked. And we just wanted to get away from paper, really, and the amount of work that Michelle would have to put in to actually carry out a survey for urgent care accreditation, which might get 35 responses. The less hands-on we could be, the better. So,
and then have to take all that data and information and then do something with it so that it was in a presentable form. And then, it just isn't as easy.
Right, and so you spoke about the large amounts of data that was coming through, and in the simplicity of that. What has that allowed you to do? What does this mean for you as an organisation now that you're getting a large amount of data that is automated and is in real time? What's that allowed you to do?
Yeah, so I'm kind of the one at the moment that's really using it, mainly because Michelle is stuck in, we've got foundation standards and urgent care accreditation audit both in May. And I find it really, really valuable. So we've currently, to date, we've got about 6,000 responses, which is huge, and it's a huge amount of information. But I feel like I can actually say I have a really good understanding of what our patients are saying, what the experience that they're having. Like Michelle said, our participation rate is still low, but we haven't actively pushed it. We've really just put it out there and seen what we've got back. But the numbers are really high. So for Māori, as an example, the numbers that we've got in our responses in 6 months is what we've had in 5 years from a patient experience survey. So just the volume and the cross-section and the number of people that are responding just gives a bit of validity to the information. And then what we're kind of seeing in terms of the results, so we get a really visual picture of kind of, I guess, our score, patient experience score, but it's not so much the actual number and the score that's meaningful to me, it's about how I can look at a glance of all the different areas of the organisation. So we have about 25 enrolling GPs and NPs. So at a glance, I can see every single one of them in a line and see if there's any differences between them. Our organisation is split by locations. So rather than patients coming to a 30,000 patient practice, they go into a suite of about 10,000 patients. So we kind of run like 4 general practices with 4 of these suites. So we can see, again, at a glance, if there's any differences between those areas. Maybe there's some training requirements that are needed. Maybe there's something that one suite could learn from another, because there's a slight difference between the two.
You're not able to do that with a patient experience survey.
No.
Not even nearly.
Yeah, we can't break down to anything. And then the other thing we can do is we can track it over time, so we can see if anything changes. So if there's an improvement or a not improvement. And we actually did a model of care change recently. So we were able to see if that made, even in the first month, was there a difference in the experience of the patients from the previous month? And does that particular suite differ from the other suites based on the change to the model of care? So we can really get into some of that stuff that we absolutely couldn't do before. And that's just the numbers and the visual, the basic stuff. And then on top of that, we've got pretext. So there's a question that says, what is one thing that Hastings Health Centre could do to improve the service, or something like that. And we've got 2,500 comments on that question, which may seem a little bit overwhelming. But I find it really valuable, and it's something I personally scroll every week because firstly, it allows me to see the compliments, which you just didn't get before. So I can fire those out to the team. I can jump on any like training needs, any particular little pockets where, maybe like just today, I've sent an email because I've had 3 negative comments about one particular area, so just being able to jump on those things quickly and try and fix them before they become an issue. Yeah, and then I guess one of the things that I get questions from around Hawke's Bay, other colleagues and practices kind of saying, well, what are your like tangible benefits? So that's all nice, but actually, like, what are the tangible things that you've got out of it? And a big thing for us is it's reduced our low level complaints. So things like complaints about cost of the service, which would usually, take a lot of administration, have to follow a complaints process, end up auditable, those kind of things. People are able to just give that feedback and we can receive it and we add it to, that theme, but we don't have to respond to it. So yeah, it then saves our complaints process for the more meatier things that we need to investigate. So that's been really valuable. And what are the other things? Being able to pass on the compliments. So just have them up my sleeve, or when there's a that the team's feeling a bit strained in the last, at the moment, school holidays, we're really short on staff. Just try and pump some compliments out there so people feel appreciated.
Well, that did its trick, didn't it? We know that works.
And yeah, for the audits that we've got coming up, no work, just download some information and stick it in the smart sheet. Don't have to do anything there. So it's just been really valuable for us to have that kind of actionable information.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. You mentioned as part of that, the large amounts of data, for large amounts of free text, and you're going through that every single day. It's fantastic that you are regularly using the system and being able to feed that back to your team. I know certainly that is something that a lot of clinics around the country have struggled with, is getting that insight and feeding it back really quickly. So that's amazing. I guess for those of you on the call who are unaware, Karina did mention it just briefly then, but they do use the AskYourTeam system internally for their 170 staff. Karina, it'd be great to hear from you, you know, how you're using the system day to day now, which you've kind of covered there, but also how you intend to use the system in future, and what that looks like for Hastings Health Centre.
Yeah, so you know, one of the things with the free text, the way that works is you can add a theme or a topic, or I think they're called, to each line of free text and a sentiment, so positive or negative. So as I'm scrolling, I just quickly put a topic in for each line. So that's in the patient experience, which is important for the next part of it, which is so one of the things I've been doing is just doing a bit of staff engagement, using face-to-face, but also the AskYourTeam internal survey. And I've asked the question of staff, what does Hastings Health Centre do well as an employer? What could we do better? What do we do well as a service provider? And what could we do better? And again, can theme those, and then I'm able to compare them to what the patients are saying. And the reason I went down this route was really, like everyone, I imagine, we're all kind of front of mind is financial and workforce sustainability. And so therefore workforce retention, we want to, as much as possible, keep our staff and keep them happy. And I think there's a real strong connection, particularly in health, but probably in most kind of customer facing organizations, where I think patient experience is a real strong correlation with staff satisfaction. And if one's happy, the other one's happy, because you know, you want that sense of satisfaction out of your job, and if your patients are happy, then you go home at the end of the day satisfied. So I really wanted to try and marry up how the two were feeling, but also because, you know, money has been really tight for, you know, all of us over the, you know, since kind of the COVID funding dried up. I feel like we've just had this narrative for the last 12 months of like cost, revenue, efficiencies, whereas now just wanting to change the topic slightly and move to more like improvement-based conversations. So I might be thinking about efficiencies and productivity and trying to get more revenue through the door, but the staff are saying we want to reduce wait times for our patients. The patients are saying we want to reduce wait times. We want more flexibility in appointments and things. So if I can talk more about wait times, efficiency and flexibility from a patient and staff perspective, rather than keeping on banging on about efficiencies and revenue from a business perspective, it's just much, I think, get a lot more buy-in, but hopefully still get to the same end point. And that's, you know, to be able to bring together kind of the business needs, kind of my needs, I suppose, for along with the staff needs and the patient needs, and bring them all together and try and see that we're actually all on the same page. We're just all talking different languages. That has been hugely valuable. And you know, without the AskYourTeam 2 tools to be able to do that, it would have taken us a huge, much more time, a lot harder. We would have had to have, you know, a lot more input from the team, whereas this has just all happened in the background. And yeah, now I just have to kind of pull it together and communicate it.
There's also the other smaller surveys we run internally as well that help support us with our health and safety, around hazards and engagement, that sort of thing. And we do an onboarding and an exit survey as well. And once again, all that information comes in and can help support, and you can tie it up and correlate, you know, especially since we're now able to see down to, say, each suite, the patient experience, what's the experience of the people who are leaving, who have worked in that suite. And there's some real little gems that might have been outliers that you didn't really put 2 and 2 together, but it's much easier for us to do that.
Yeah, it's not a guessing game anymore.
No. and we now know what problems we need to solve.
Fantastic. I mean, those are some great points. I guess the next thing people might be thinking, and we are having a webinar in a couple of weeks' time, but for yourselves, how easy is it to use the system? How easy is it to get data out of the system? I'm sure everyone's thinking that of, oh, if I could use a smartphone, I could use the AskYourTeam system. What's it like for yourselves as a user of the system?
Yeah, it's really, really basic, very intuitive. There's not a lot to it, like there's this many questions, they're right there. You just click on anything. You can't break anything, so you just keep clicking until you find what you want. You can like export, which I'm a nerd, so I like the ability to export and slice and dice things differently sometimes, or present it in a different way for a board report or something like that. So yeah, I really like that ability.
Yeah, and I'm probably different to Karina. I don't know if you've noticed, but I could probably come from a slightly different generation. So I'm, when it comes to anything IT, and I'd say I'm pretty average, but what I like about it is I can click on all the buttons and just, there it all is. I don't have to do anything special. As you say, I can't break it. It's web-based, so, if I was working from home one day, then I'd be able to look at it then. It's very easy to pick out bits that you want and to be able to just, sort of showcase those a bit as well. That's the other thing we like. I love watching our staffs, don't know if it's a plural, faces when you produce some things that they're really doing well in, and, to watch their faces light up. Give them something positive, but it's very easy to pull that data out. You don't have to go looking for it.
Also the collateral, like the information, the FAQs and things that AskYourTeam has, like you can always find an answer to your question or someone at the end of the phone. But yeah, for the patient voice, really simple information for patients to understand, like the use of their data, or like who's got access to that and what they have access to. We've had no complaints from any of our patients about some random text message that they're getting, and we have flyers available to give, and we've not had any issues from our receptionists about not feeling like they can answer the questions, because they've got it all there that AskYourTeam's provided for us.
Great. No, I guess, yep. Sorry, Michelle. Sorry.
I'm trying to say, actually, feedback from our receptionists is that they're not having to spend a whole lot of time actually talking to people about the survey. I think part of that is because people are used to getting surveys now, but the resources we've got that AskYourTeam were able to help us with and supply to us actually they're just pretty basic, but people know what the story is. So that goes back to, are we spending a lot of time administering the survey? And I'd say no, we're not. We're actually spending our time doing the more exciting stuff, which is understanding what our people are saying, and then being able to take that information and do something with it.
Fantastic. You mentioned before about, you haven't had any sort of patients come to you. Did you have any concerns around privacy, data security with regards to patient voice?
Yeah, we did. I think like everyone, you get a bit nervous when you add in another third party into, accessing information, or just what that means for our patients if they think their information is being shared with others. So we did have like quite a few reservations at the start, but yeah, we were able to talk it through with AskYourTeam and just get some stuff written down and just really understand how the information was being used, how it was being destroyed, how it was getting accessed, and all of that. And we worked through all of that, and had no issues.
They were the same questions that you would ask of any anything really. Same questions if, you know, people are around when the first patient experience survey came in, the national one, we asked exactly the same questions. Yeah, we take our role in privacy very seriously, so that, but we were comfortable and all of our questions were answered. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Look, as we've been going along, we've had a couple of those additional questions come through around ease of getting data out of the system and around that privacy piece. So we've answered those. If any of you on the call, any of the attendees have any questions, please put them through to that Q&A now. If not, again, we will follow up at the end after this webinar and provide an ability for you to come back to me with any questions that you might have, more specifically to the platform. But other than that, there aren't any further questions as far as we can see. So, you know, that's either a good thing or a bad thing, but look, we're there. Is there anything further, Michelle and Karina, that you would like to add around the patient voice and your experience with it, or you happy?
I'll just consult my notes. Yeah, I suppose for me, it is about trying to bring things together, and, you know, not looking at all the information you're getting in silos, being able to bring that information together and actually do something with it. I get really frustrated. So if I take the national survey, I get very frustrated when I've got to click through 20 different screens to try and get some information. I can't get the information on the people I want. You know, I have to say that most people who answer the national survey look like me, you know, and that's not always the sort of people you want to hear from them. You want to hear from them, but not always. And so it just allows us to look at a whole lot of information, as Karina was saying, in a bigger picture. And support. So, like my job, I don't see patients anymore. My job is to support our workforce at the Hastings Health Centre who do have interactions with patients to be able to do a really good quality job. And things, these sorts of things like Ask Your Team patient voice really support me to be able to do that. Yeah, that's how I see it. It's a great tool for that.
Fantastic. We've had a few additional questions come through, and one of them is one that I will answer. Are the responses anonymous? Yes, the responses are anonymous for anybody who answers them. What we do pull from the Medtech system through the Alex API and the integration point is Medtech ID and a couple of other demographics, which I will run through in the session in a couple of weeks' time, and I'll also send out some further information after this around that and what we pull from the system. But it is non-PII, so we do not store any PII post that invite being sent. The information we gather and the way we've built our feedback tool is very, very secure, and I'll share all that information after this webinar. The next question is around the distribution of the survey. So we use email to distribute the survey. We do have the ability to send text messaging invites. There is a cost to that, and that'll be an additional to what the integration piece is and the patient voice piece is, but we will share all that information with you after this webinar. But we primarily use email and text message. We can use QR codes in the practice or a kiosk mode also if that was required. So there are other ways to be able to gather that information. Regarding the analytics, there's a question come through of analytics and how easy are they to understand. I think Michelle and Karina spoke to that more broadly a few moments ago, but I will fully demonstrate the AskYourTeam system and the ease of use and understanding those results in a couple of weeks' time in the webinar. So if you'd like to join us then, I'm happy to demonstrate that and go through all the filters and how you can look and analyze the data in that patient voice demo. Next question would be, how do you deal with people that don't have technology? With regards to asking those surveys for people that do not have a smartphone, an email address, even data together to respond, we do have the ability, as I've just mentioned earlier, for practices to have a kiosk or QR code or within the practice where they can where patients can respond to the survey within the practice itself, rather than having to have any technology to be able to respond to those surveys. So there is an option there also. A few questions around cost. I'm not going to address that in today's session. This is more about the functionality and the product and the features itself of patient voice, but I will address that in the follow-up email and EDM that will come out early next week following up from this webinar. It will come out as part of those FAQs as well. So you'll have that information very, very shortly around cost. Another one here. Quick question: if you wanted to filter out a personal response, i.e. Joe the nurse is rubbish, do we just tick the sensitive box before you export the info? Answer to that is yes, we can filter out those sensitive responses. And in fact, Karina, you've had a couple of sensitive responses that have come through, haven't you, in some of those free text comments, which has allowed you to jump on it really quickly because it is a real-time system, i.e. you get the information on the day or as soon as that response has come in from that particular patient or consumer. You're actually able to get on top of it straight away. So you don't share that information if you don't want to, if it's a sensitive topic particularly, but as a leader or as a practice manager, as a CEO of that practice, those are all types of pieces of information that you do want to know and understand so that you can deal with it accordingly. So although we cannot identify those individuals specifically, it's always nice to have that information so you can actually address it to the wider team if it is something sensitive. But yes, certainly you can filter those responses out. So with regards to any other questions, that is about all. I will address all other questions in the response to this email, to this webinar in an email, and I will answer any further questions around, I guess, AskYourTeam Patient Voice's future and what that looks like and how we're evolving it over time in a couple of weeks' time at that webinar that we will be hosting. Is there any other questions that have come through?
Can I say extra, just in relation to the question, what about people who don't have access to good levels of technology? I mean, I think that's the first thing that always springs to mind. But if you think when we do an urgent care survey and we give out a paper survey, we actually struggle more to get people to fill out a piece of paper. And sometimes they've got a reasonable time to wait in the waiting room to fill it out. So we're actually getting more data than we would have, giving out pieces of paper. So yes, there may be some areas of our population that we're not reaching well, and there are other things we can do to address that. But in actual fact, the themes are still kind of the same. And I think we all think that a paper survey is much easier for people to fill out. Well, I can tell you all that happens is they screw them up on the floor and make paper darts out of them. And so I think I've changed my mind a little bit over that, to be honest.
There you go.
Still information.
There you go. Fantastic. Very good. Okay, well, thank you so much, Karina and Michelle, for today. Alex, was there anything you wanted to add before I close with a karakia, appreciating that we're about bang on time here today?
I just wanted to reiterate that any questions that were missed, yes, of course, we will be certainly passing those along to you folks at AskYourTeam. So we'll make sure that those get answered. And just on behalf of Medtech, I wanted to send a huge thank you to you for participating today, and especially a massive thank you to Karina and Michelle for joining to share their experience. And beyond that, I want to recognize and thank everybody else for attending today, because time is so extraordinarily valuable, in particular in primary care. So we really do appreciate you taking the time to attend, ask questions, provide feedback, and all of that. So wishing everybody else everybody a great rest of your week.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, thank you, Alex. Thank you very much. And just to reiterate there, we will be following up with an EDM email coming out to all attendees, further information around the patient voice product, video of today's link, and also answering any questions that we might not have answered, as well as an invite for another webinar we'll host in 2 weeks' time, which will cover off seeing the system from end to end. We can cover off the pricing piece there, all the data security piece, and all the integration from end to end, and what that looks like, and what information we pull directly from the Alex API, and answer any really nitty-gritty questions that we can get into then about the AskYourTeam patient voice product. So yeah, look, thank you once again to everybody, and I'll close off with the karakia. Kia pai. Tū taua mai I runga, tū taua mai I raro, tū taua mai I roto, tū taua mai I waho, kia tau ai te Māori tū, te Māori ora ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, tā kia. Thank you once again, Michelle and Karina. Thanks, team. All the best.